Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of That 60s Recording podcast. My name is Joe Montague, and I am your host. And today we are talking to another Joe Kane, who is I've known for a few years now, 2 or 3 years, through the Beatles tribute world. Joe is a professional Paul McCartney, as you'll hear about more in the episode. And we met gigging together, and then I started working with Joe, playing drums for his original project, the Radiophonic Tuck Shop, and then more recently Chino Feldy, which again you'll hear more about through the episode. Joe is a incredibly talented musician and prolific songwriter, and I was really keen to get him on because his writing process really interests me. He has such a relaxed manner about the way he goes about writing, but seems to also be very specific in terms of knowing what he wants. And that sort of balance I find really interesting, and find him really easy to work with. He has some great advice on cheap gear that sounds great. He doesn't have anything super duper expensive, but he makes a great sound, and he comes up with some really creative ideas in the studio, in terms of recording and in terms of songwriting, and is just a all-round great guy, and I think you'll really enjoy this episode and get a lot from it. So yeah, without further ado, here we go, Joe Kane. So today we are joined by Joe Kane from Glasgow, and he is, as well as a songwriter, he is a professional Paul McCartney. Are you happy with me calling you that?
Well, that's what I've been doing, so to call it anything else would be blatant lie.
And I mentioned you're a songwriter, so you have your a project that you're currently working from, which is the Radiophonic Tuck Shop, and
Yep.
That's what's happened there.
Sorry, it was just my phone sliding down the mixing desk.
Amazing. I can edit all of this stuff out, don't you worry.
Right, cool.
So you've got the Radiophonic Tuck Shop. That's your. So looking on your sort of Bandcamp, you're quite a prolific writer, but the Radiophonic Tuck Shop is kind of the latest incarnation of you as a solo artist. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then before that, you were. So the first band I could find evidence of you being in was the Owsley Sunshine. Did more come before that, or was that the sort of the first serious band you were with?
That was the first serious one in terms of recording. Before that, I was in a band that was a very kind of punky, late teenage years angsty band called The Stunts. Mm-hmm. And anything we recorded was basically done at rubbish studios where you paid a stone guy hundreds of pounds to do substandard recordings with you all in different rooms at different times. So really, with Owsley Sunshine, it was the first time I got into recording properly. I'd always done it at home on 4 tracks and done my own kind of weird demos and stuff, but that was the first time I tried to record a band seriously. And even then, no reason that the guy that I met that I started the band with came from Leighton Buzzard.
Oh, wow.
He came from a great pool of musicians, and basically at the weekend they would go to this studio on the downtime that their mate had, just all record all their songs. They didn't play live or anything, they just went and recorded. So when I met him, he had all these amazing CDRs worth of like superb stuff, and it was real. I was like, yeah, I want to do that. So him and I started a band, and we were just writing tunes every day and
nice.
recording them for our albums. But I mean, my technical ability was very limited, and I basically had an old style PC tower that I stole off my girlfriend at the time, and we literally just plugged a mixing desk in the back of it, straight into whatever the sound card was in this thing, and we'd kind of split the stereo channels so we could at least record 2 things at once. And everything, I think it was recorded at I don't know, but everything sounds like it was recorded straight onto a sheet of A4 paper. It's pretty lousy, but there's something about it that kind of works. So yeah, that was the first proper recording band that I'd done, and I thought myself, hey, I can record. I'm a producer now. Hey,
There's a meme going around somewhere that says that, isn't there?
is there?
Yeah, where it's a kid gets a new Mac or something like that, and then suddenly he's a recording bands for money.
Well, that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes.
I should explain. When you said the guy was from Leighton Buzzard, that's near where I grew up, and for a little while I thought you were being sarcastic because I know Leighton Buzzard, and no offence to it, but it's not the kind of place where I imagine is a good pool of musicians.
Well, I don't know that area too well. Is Tring near there? A place called Tring? Well, I think that's more specifically where he was from.
Cool.
Tring. So
there we go.
Yeah.
So then, how did you get involved with playing bass in the Beatles? Kind of, I call it the Beatles world, but getting involved doing Paul McCartney stuff.
Well, that happened to me kind of fairly late on, really, because the thing that got me into music and recording was obviously the Beatles anyways. So when I was in my early teens, I seen the film Help when I was like 12 or something. And one Saturday afternoon, this is my famous story, one Saturday afternoon, I was ill and my mum put me on the couch with a quilt and a bottle of Lucozade and put the telly on the Saturday afternoon, and the film Help was on. And I was just like, for that black and white scene of them at the start singing Help, that song just kind of spoke to me. So from there, all snowballed from there. So I picked up recordings of the albums and stuff. And it was funny in the 90s when you got into albums, because you didn't necessarily get into things in a linear fashion of when they were released, because you just basically picked things up when you could.
Yeah.
Like from a shop or from a mate, and you would copy a tape or something. So I got into the Beatles albums all in the wrong order. But from there, obviously I wanted to learn guitar and stuff and bass, and so everything spiraled from getting into the Beatles. Also, my love of recording came from that as well, because I wanted to make recordings that sounded like the Beatles, and I still do, because I love the sound of all that stuff.
So you're right-handed naturally, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, but you learned left-handed to play the role of Paul McCartney in sort of tribute shows.
Yeah, well, sorry, going back, I just completely ignored your first question. So having got into the Beatles and I started bands and stuff, and I was doing bands and all that for years and years, but everybody knew me as the Beatle guy because I was so into the Beatles. And I'd always liked Beatles tribute bands, and I always used to go and see them, and I always kind of thought, oh, that would be really cool to do. But it wasn't something that ever come up until I got married once by accident.
That sounds like a good story.
And I moved away from Glasgow for a short time to a little island called Islay.
Oh, yeah.
And
where
I was
the whiskey
over there.
comes from.
Yeah, exactly where the whiskey comes from. And I moved over there, and it didn't go according to plan, and I come back. And just when I come back, I kind of hit 30, and I moved back in with my mum and dad after this disastrous marriage. And I was like, oh, what am I going to do? I was unemployed. And then I seen an advert on Gumtree saying, looking to start a Beatles tribute band. So looking for someone who could do John or Paul. And the person who'd put the ad up was going, I could do John or Paul. So I gave them a shout, and I was like, oh, you know what? I had a copy violin bass. It was a piece of shit. I was like, yeah, I'd be up for this. I could do John or Paul, but I've got a little violin bass copy. He was like, all right, cool. And then I didn't hear anything for months. And along the line, I contacted again and went, oh, should get this going. So we did. And it turned out to be Clark, who I'd met some years before. When I put his band on at a night I was doing.
I should explain
we
quickly.
Were all older.
I'll just explain that Clark is Clark Gilmore, who is also a songwriter, but he plays John Lennon in Beatles World, and he's a mutual friend of ours, but you've known him a heck of a lot longer than I have.
Yeah. I mean, I first came across Clark. Someone sent me a demo of one of his songs, which I thought was great, and it sounded really kinksy. It was called A Matter of Time, I think. I was like, oh yeah. And we were doing a night, me and some of my mates who were all a lot of my mates are serious 60s psych heads, And I was like, yeah, these guys sound like the Kinks. They're awesome. So we'll put them on at the night. And then Clark and his mates turned up, and they were pissed and they were rotten. My mates were all giving me a hard time. You know, they were like a kind of substandard Libertines tribute. Now that's unfair. No, they were all decent. Like, but they were a bit kind of rough around the edges. And
Yeah.
all my mates were like, "Oh yeah, what are they all about? These kids." So that's how I met Clark, and we kept in contact every now and again and talked about Beatles guitars and stuff. Just on MSN. Remember that, kids?
I do
MSN.
remember MSN. That's how I met my wife.
Is that? Oh dear.
Yeah.
But,
Oh dear.
yeah. So it turned out the guy who put the advert up was young Clark. So, and, you know, that was just over 10 years ago.
I didn't know that
kicked
story.
off.
That's really cool. So then you just sort of you carried on playing in Beatles shows. Like I mean, guess that's how we met, is through playing in Beatles tribute. But you were recording. Going back to the recording stuff. So you said you were messing about with 4 tracks, and then can you tell me a bit about what your studio's like now? I've seen pictures of it, and it looks like a bit of a creative paradise.
Well, at the moment, I've just kind of progressed through the years trying to improve certain things that I can. And then sometimes, even if something's shit, I'll stick with it if it works. And at the moment, I'm running a laptop that I think was made in 2009 with a copy of Cubase 5, also from 2009. But they do what I want them to do. And my board, I've got one of these things that came out last year. It's called a Zoom Live Track L20.
Okay.
I don't know if a lot of people have got these at the moment, but they're awesome. You know, I used to really like the Zoom R16, which was a little interface stroke standalone recorder that had 8 inputs that you could record at once. This is kind of like the new version of that, except it's got 20 simultaneous inputs. So I basically have everything set up in my studio, always ready to record. I've got like my piano mic'd up in stereo. I've got like my kind of Valve Analog Addicts preamp, always ready to go as a DI or a mic preamp. And I've got, you know, what else? You know, just like my DI and my bass amp, everything's always ready to go, so that if I feel like doing something, you know, I just have to kind of hit record, which is great. So I kind of changed my garage into like a studio kind of thing this time last year. And I was doing drums and all that, but my neighbours weren't keen on it, so it put me off. I need to build another layer of wall in it, and I've just not got around to it. So I moved back indoors to my spare room. And I quite like it in here. It's quite small, but it's cozy and everything's to hand. So I had a really bad workflow for a while, and everything seemed to take ages, but that period seems to be over, and I'm back to like just, you know when you're doing something, you don't think.
Yes.
You don't kind of procrastinate too much. I was doing that for a long time, and I was getting really bogged down in doing anything. But now I'm flying. It's good.
Well, from what we've done together, you do seem to want to work quite quickly. You have an idea and you pounce on it really fast, and I think having everything set up seems to help with that.
Yeah, very much so.
So what are you using? Just I know people will be interested in it, and I'm interested. So mics wise, what have you got going on? You were telling me the other day you had some D19s that you're not using at the minute.
Yeah, I was using them mainly for drums because I always had my Ludwig downbeat kit set up. Mm-hmm. So I was basically using the D19s in a kind of hybrid setup. So when the Beatles stuff, they would have like the one D19 overhead. From Rubber Soul and Revolver. Yeah. But then obviously they added more. And when we look at that picture that I sent you the other week of Ringo,
yes,
you think about the way that other microphone is over the tom-tom.
Yeah.
It's really, it's quite far away from the tom, so that mic is going to be picking up a lot of the kit as well. So it's almost like a Glyn Johns technique. So what I done with my D19s is I moved the one over the tom, just angled it a bit more, so it was basically using D19s and a Glyn Johns technique. So it's a kind of hybrid of the Beatles sound and the Glyn Johns thing if you get the distance right. So that was a sound that was kind of working quite well for me. It's very bright. I don't understand how in Abbey Road they could use those D19s and they didn't seem harsh. You don't use those microphones right, they sound very harsh because they're so bright and brittle.
Yeah, I had one of the D19. Is it E?
The E's are excellent. I had an E and it was the best one I've ever had, and it had an XLR on the bottom, and it broke. I was so upset. That one sounded excellent. It was really good.
I found that to be a little on the bright side as well. Just when I was using it, I was borrowing it off a friend, and I don't have it anymore. But they're on my shopping list. What else have you got going on at the moment, mics wise?
Well, I've got the one that you turned me on to was the Zodia Beeb.
Yes.
Modified Reslow. So that's what I'm speaking for at the moment. Actually, is the old Beeb.
Oh, cool.
And that's just a great mic. It's a great all rounder, and the best thing about it, and ribbon mics in general, you can get a good bit of distance on it in the room. Like if I'm recording acoustic guitar sometimes and it sounds a bit up front, Just push the mic stand back a couple of feet. You still get a really nice full tone, but you get the nice side of the room as well. Whereas with a condenser, it would start to sound pretty boxy.
Yes. With
a Beeb, you can get a bit of distance, still get a nice tone, and it does weird things at a distance as well. You start to get kind of cool overtones and stuff that you can make it fit in recording with that texture that it does. So I love that mic. My other mics that I usually use are an SM57. Some gets used for everything. Sometimes I use that in vocals for the Love Hearts one.
Yes.
Use that on the vocals. And then I've got one of those Pyle SM57 copies as well, which cost a tenner.
Pyle?
And Pyle, Pyle.
I've not heard of them.
They're great, man. It's like a £10 mic SM57. It looks just like one, and it sounds like one. It's a touch brighter, and it actually sounds a bit like a D19. Man, I would recommend checking them out. You could maybe stick them under your toms in that kind of Ringo way. But that's really cool, and it's like a slightly brighter SM57 sound. And what else? I've got tons of stuff that I hardly use at the moment. I've got an old 60s Sennheiser 421. The big square one.
Yeah, the one that's really plastic.
MD421. I've got one of them that I picked up in cash converters for 15 quid.
Wow.
15 years ago. And what else have I got? On my piano, for a while, this company called Karma Audio done these great little microphones called Bullet things or something.
All right.
And I've got a box of them, and at the time they were like 70 quid for 5 mics, and it was insane. They're these little tiny. They are literally the size of a bullet. You put the XLR on one end, and then it's like 1.5 inch, 2-inch size microphone. Those are Omni condensers. Mm-hmm. So they're amazing sounding. I've got 2 of them on the piano, behind my piano. They're always set up. And at the moment, that's about it. I don't really have a large diaphragm condenser that I'm using at the moment. I've kind of went off them. But I'd quite like to get one of the Neumann clones that various people are doing. That's probably my next microphone purchase, some kind of Neumann-esque thing.
They're not something I've looked into massively because obviously I'm only interested in drums really, so I haven't looked at too much at the Neumann stuff or even any clones. I'll be interested to see what you get because I think it seems like you've got a good ear for what getting good sounds out of inexpensive gear.
Yeah, that's Stam. Is it Stam Audio?
STAM.
They're supposed to do it. Yeah, they're supposed to do a really good Neumann kind of clone.
All right. Again, another one I've not heard
yeah.
of.
But they're the ones that make the Fairchild clones as well.
Ah.
The Stamchild, something like that. Too expensive for me anyway.
How are you getting on with the Analog Addicts pre's?
Well, funnily enough, I had a kind of reminder on Facebook that it was just pretty much 4 years ago that I bought that, and it's great. I use it a lot. I'll tell you what I use it for mostly. Like if I'm doing a direct signal from a bass or something,
Yeah.
I just plug it right in the front with that guy, and you get a nice, just a nice bit of kind of, it's got good transformers in it and stuff, and definitely gives everything just a little bit of edge, and it seems to sit better. Things sit better when I've done it through that as well. So
I agree.
it's a nice unit, and
mine.
it's held up really well. I've never had any problems with it in 4 years.
I once thought that I had an issue with mine, and I rang the chap up. I can't remember what his name is now, but I messaged him. I think actually I messaged him on Facebook, and and chatted to him, and he seems like a really nice guy, and he was kind of alluding to the fact that he didn't think it would be an issue with the pre's, and I can't remember what it was now, but I ended up taking it out and unscrewing it, and then checking everything that needed to be checked, like checking all the valves and everything, with kind of him talking me through it on Messenger, and it turned out not to be his pre's that were the problem. And then when I told him, he said, he was saying like, yes, I build them really well. I was pretty confident it wasn't me that was wrong, and they're pretty robust, I think.
Yeah.
So I
Good
thought,
unit.
yeah, it was great. I mean, I've got half an eye on one of his Poltec copies. I'd love to have one of those, but again, pretty expensive. And
I'll tell you what's good though. I've got two of those Clark Technique do a Pultec copy now, and it's like 200 odd quid on Tommen. I've got two of them. They're awesome, man.
That's a good price range.
Yeah, absolutely. I got two of them, and I mastered a few things last year with them, and thought they sounded excellent.
Oh, you sent. I remember you sending me something you'd worked on, and it did sound really nice.
Yeah. To get them on the go again.
I should mention the just for anybody that's listening, the mics, the Reslos that we talked about, because we've had Stuart Taverner, who from Exaudia, or Zordia, or however you're supposed to say it. I'm not sure.
Maybe it is Exaudia, but I'm just calling it Zodia. Zodia. Hi,
well,
Zodia.
like it's a Greek goddess or something. The goddess of ribbon microphones. I had him on the show. I think episode 3. So it'd be a good little plug for him. So if you go and check out the Exaudia Zordia website, he sells upgrades of the Reslo RB1, and I think they're about 200 quid each. So really reasonably priced, and he does a fantastic job on them.
Absolutely. This microphone is just it's my absolute go-to main microphone. I've got another RB1 that I've been meaning to send to him for a while. So as soon as I start making some money, it's going down to him. Really excellent microphone. Can't say enough about it. It's just fantastic on anything and everything.
So let's talk a little bit about your creative process. We've been working together for a couple of years, is it?
Yeah.
I do. If you're listening to this, you may know I do the remote sessions thing from my studio in Leeds, and Joe sends me tracks down from Glasgow, and it just amazes me that how much you write and how you always seem to have really strong references for what you want, and that says to me that you've got quite a focused. So when you can picture the song in your head and you just sort of go for a very particular sound every time.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, probably a bit too much. Sometimes I remember there was one track, actually, one of the ones that I liked the best that you drummed on was the one where I didn't tell you anything to do. I had the Sgt. Pepper loop over it. And I think I just sent it and went, oh, just do what you like. And what you done on that one was excellent. I think sometimes I'm too specific, especially if there's one that I've done drums on. I think I get too hung up on the drums being the same as what I've done. So probably on the next batch of stuff, I'll just go like, oh, just whatever. I think it's quite nice when you get surprised on one of your tracks by something that you didn't expect. That's kind of almost more pleasurable than going, oh my God, the snare drum's the fill's not right, and you get too hung up on that.
Have you?
And I think that's
sorry, go on.
one of the things of when you're working with musicians, like in the same room and stuff, it's great to get that collaboration thing because it's easier to surprise each other when it's happening in the moment. This is great as well. So,
do you find that in the past you've been? I don't know this, the answer may well be no. But do you? I'll preface this question. So, one of the things I like about working with you is that you are focused with what you want, which makes my job easier. But at the same time, you are really open to input from other people. So if I play something that you maybe didn't ask for, or as a how about this, you're always open to new ideas. And I find that when I work with people who are like that, it's often because they've been the opposite of that in the past and have made a conscious decision that being too hung up on certain things isn't productive, and they often switch to where you are now.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, were you like that at one point?
Well, I think I've always been a bit like that. I think, I've been in a lot of bands as well, so I do like the arrangement thing where it's like you're a producer and arranger of your track, and you say, if you were in a studio with a bunch of musicians and you were paying them, you would say, right, this is how I want it. That's it. That's the final word, really, when you're being paid.
Yeah.
Play on something, which is a different world from being in a band.
Yes.
But I'm that way now. Where a lot of my music I make, I've done so many tracks that are supposed to be a certain way over the years, or it's based on something that I like, be it like the Beatles or Phil Spector or a Motown thing. I'm always trying to cop those sounds, and I've done them many times. So you stop, if I'm playing on something and I know how it wants to be, you stop surprising yourself, and you get bored of your own music, which is the biggest crime of all, because then you lose your momentum and you lose any interest in what you're doing. So how can you expect other people to listen to it if it's boring you? So I absolutely love being surprised on my stuff. And the last album that I made, actually, that you kind of played on a few songs, was all about me trying to get other people in, try out different stuff, because I seen a documentary about Steely Dan making their Asia album.
I've always said Asia,
yeah. I think that's what it is. And they were talking about getting multiple people in for guitar solos and trying out different people to see what they could. And I loved the idea of that, where it's like, well, so I decided to work with lots of different people on that album, different musicians for different tracks who I thought would be right for the song. And that's what that album was all about. It was for me trying out different stuff and going for a different sound. And I loved that. It wasn't the most commercial album or critically appraised, but for me it was a great album, and it opened my ears up a wee bit to like some different stuff and different techniques, recording techniques as well, that I think it improved a lot of what I was doing from before with that album.
So let's dive into a bit of that then. How, maybe with that album or others, what do you have maybe? Is there any standout techniques? I know when we were chatting about doing this podcast, you mentioned that it seems to be drums that you're always mixing it up on, which works for me because I love it. I'm happy to talk about drums. But is there any standout techniques that you've used that you think would be interesting for people to hear about?
One of the main things that I've done with drums on that album, I suppose I really like when a snare drum is very present in the middle of a mix and is really clear. So what I done with my snare drum is, I suppose lots of people do this now, but it was just the first time that I'd done it, and I hadn't particularly read about anyone else doing it. I know people do it, but I just took a big full stereo sample of my snare, and I used a little free VST thing to kind of trigger it on my drum tracks. So my recorded snare was there, and I had like the kind of snare samples. It wasn't like I was using like some other guy's snare sample to kind of make my sound, but it was my snare drum the same way it was tuned, but just really present. I love the ELO sound, you know,
Mm.
and I think Jeff Lynne used to overdub more snares and stuff, and so I like that. I like to get very clear snare drum that's just massive right in the middle. So on a couple of songs on the album are done like that, and I don't like messing about with drums too much after they've been recorded. But yeah, that snare drum thing was good, and it kind of done something that was pleasing to my ears.
There was one that we did recently where it was a bit of a Lady Madonna vibe where we did I played, I think it was just a hi-hat and snare beat all the way through, and then overdubbed another regular beat that was like the main beat of the song. So it had almost like the first beat operating as a percussion sort of percussion loop that was going on through the song. And you played around with that. Did you make it mono and EQ'd it really heavily somewhere, or?
Well, one of them is a Paul McCartney production technique, that because it does it. Got Ringo to do it in Lady Madonna. Ringo plays like the normal rockin' beat and a kind of double time shuffle thing as well, but Paul used it, I think, to the best. The best example is on a song he produced for the Bonzo Dog Doodah band, which is called "I'm the Urban Spaceman," and on that it starts off with a double time beat, and it's almost like a distant mono recording, and then the overdub, and it works really well. It gives it a kind of very cool feel. So yeah, what I done was with you, got you to do the double. It's basically a rip-off of Urban Spaceman, but exactly what I described there. But with the faster beat, actually put it into an amp sim and also a wah-wah pedal. So I got it in an auto wah, so it's going, and it sounds a bit like an electro wobble board. Yeah, that kind of works quite well. I quite like that sound. So yeah, I'd done something that was already done by someone else, but then I changed it slightly to sound like a wobble board, basically.
So when you're writing, did you set out for that particular tune? Did you think I'm gonna do this Urban Spaceman thing, or did that come around after? I mean, what I'm asking is, did you get that song in your head first, and then go, I'm gonna write a song like that, or did you have the germination of a song and think it could suit that production style?
When I wrote the song, I knew. When I wrote the song, I knew it was going to be. I wrote it in the style kind of Neil Innes, who done the Bonzo Dog Doodah band and also the Ruttles.
Yeah.
In my head, I was doing it like him in that kind of style anyway. Yeah, so I knew it would have that kind of vibe. The kind of. He went for that kind of vibe. So definitely thought it will have that. And that song I actually wrote 3 or 4 years ago. So it's been sitting about for quite a while. And I always kept thinking about the song, and I was like, yeah, I'll definitely do that beat. So yeah.
One of the other things I like is that so I don't do this for anybody else, but I often just send you a stereo mix of the drums and you're happy with that. And I love how, I don't even know how to describe it, how casual you are about it, because I just think I think you said it to me once in a message that you just don't want to make any decisions or something, to words to that effect. And I love the ballsiness of just taking a stereo drum mix that I choose and you making it work. I love it.
Well, the reason I liked it, the first time you sent me one of them was, I think it was the song where I originally had the Sgt. Pepper loop going. Mm-hmm. You sent me the stereo mix and I just slotted it in and it sounded great, and I was like, right, cool, just keep doing that. Because the less I have to fiddle about and tweak. Drums are the worst. I will sit and tweak the life out of a drum mix, and to the point where I just hate it. So like to have a nice finished stereo mix of drums. But what I always do with the stereo mix as well is I'll double it, and then I'll do the parallel drum compression. So I'll take one and just smash it with compression and a bit of saturation and stuff. and mix the two so you get a bit more energy out of it, you know?
Yeah. I love that sound. It's so full of life. It's one of my favorites, and it's one of the things I don't ever get to do because I don't ever do mixes, but I love it when I hear it.
Yeah. A lot of fun.
So we've just so we're recording this in the, I've said this sentence in these podcasts so many times, in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis, and you started a fundraise. I've been calling it a fundraising project, when I've been talking about it with other friends of mine, called Chino Feldy, and that. Did you know that you were going to start that before this happened, or did it just sort of come out of? Was it born out of the crisis?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't exist before this at all. It was basically Marco and I have always, we've been friends for a long time, and we've very rarely done any music together, which is crazy. We've done the odd thing together, but we're always talking every day about this or that, and we'll do this one day. So basically, we just found ourselves with the time to do something, and I put in a video appeal up on my Facebook page saying if anybody wants to give us any ideas for songs, song titles, lyrics, anything, chip in, and we'll make some songs about it, just so that Marco and I could do something and keep ourselves sane. And out of that, we got various ideas, and the first one we done was called Bat Soup Pandemic. We created this track and a video for it, and seemed to be a laugh. And then we've done a few more, and that was it. No, it didn't exist before this at all, and it's just been a kind of some kind of response, I suppose, to this. And I suppose the songs have all been quite about this, so it's just a cathartic, fun project. And I think the good thing about it is other people can join in and give ideas, and we've tried to be quite reach out to people to get involved as well, which is cool.
It's raised quite a lot of money for the NHS appeal as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's done all right. Like, we initially put a little link with the video, and I think we made about £500 off that. And I think from the actual sale of the Stay Home, it's about another £500 as well. So, it's done all right. And that's just a nice side effect that we could give a bit of cash to help out, but it was nice to just do a track as well. And we didn't specifically do the track thinking, oh, we're going to do this for charity, man. We just done a track and then thought, well, we might as well, help out.
Yeah. What's the writing process like? Because Marco has a studio in Glasgow as well. I didn't know Marco before this project existed, so I played drums on the Chino Feldy project, and I wasn't aware of Marco, but just tell us a bit about what he does.
Marco's got a fantastic studio that he built up on his ranch, called The Barn, and it's a great little place. And I've done various things over the years up there, and been at various parties up there and stuff. It's a great place. So Marco does a lot of teaching and music classes with kids and stuff, and then he does recording sessions as well for various people. So Marco's just one of the insanely busy guy. And we've been, having a lot of fun doing this. It's been good.
How does the writing work between you guys?
I said to Marco for the first couple of tracks, let's pick a tempo. We'll pick a tempo and pick a key. You go and write a couple of bits, and I'll write a couple of bits, and we'll just fit them together.
Amazing.
That's it, and that's how it worked.
I mean, again, like when you sent me the references for the tracks, they just worked perfectly. So was that just? I mean, that must have just been like happy accidents that you both ended up with. What was the Love Hearts track, which isn't? It will be out by the time this is out. What was the reference you sent for me for that? I can't remember now.
It
was a 70s
Status Quo.
Band. Say that again, sorry.
Yes, in a 70s Status Quo vibe.
Status Quo, that's the one.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that you didn't set out to write in a Status Quo vibe. It just kind of came.
Oh, no. Marco and I totally said we're going to write a Status Quo song.
Oh.
that was like, right, Status Quo, it's in D, tempo's 160, go. That was it.
And the suggestion for the title of that song came from another friend of ours' children, didn't it?
Yeah. So in one of our initial appeal, Chris, my good friend Chris Webb, who's also an amazing drummer, said his little girls had come up with ideas for songs. One was Love Hearts, about the sweets, and the other was I Picked a Good Book Today, just about Betsy and Arabella. So we've actually written both of those songs. The other one was yet to record. I went to pick my book today. It's got a Kinksy vibe.
Nice.
So yeah.
Couple of like random questions. What's your... This is a bit of an ambiguous question, but what's your favourite off the wall thing that you've done to get a sound on a record?
I'm
properly putting you on the spot here. I can edit out all the and ahhing if you want.
I'll keep them in. They're the best bits. That's the sound of the brain. Hogs whirring. But I'll need to have a think about that. I've done a lot of things.
Do you want me to ask you another question while you wear it over?
Yeah. I'll have a... I mean, ask me something else. I'll have a think about that.
So what's your... what's the piece of gear that you've got that you couldn't live without? Your desert island piece of gear. It could be an instrument, it could be a microphone, could be your desk, could be anything.
You know, I think it would have to be my piano. It's not a particularly good piano or a particularly nice piano, but I love it. And the last piano tuner that came says he wouldn't tune it. But I love it. I just think it's got a really nice... I don't know, it's got quite a bright sound, and I think it's quite a Beatley sound. And I used to have tacks on it. I put like thumb tacks on all the hammers. Got that really plinky plonky sound. They're off at the moment, but it still sounds like that anyway, I think. Still sounds, I think it's just inherited the sound that just always sounds like it's got tacks a bit. It does need...
I was just going to say, where did that technique come from?
It's something they used to do, like either... They call it tack piano. In Abbey Road, they had the Mrs. Mills piano.
Yeah.
Which I think was actually painted with cellulose, I think, that one. But then the other Challen that they had, pianos have usually got two pedals, one for sustain, one to mute. And this had a third pedal. And if you put the third pedal down on that Challen, it had tacks on like felt that come down in between the hammers. Have it on or off. I think that one was broken. I'm not sure. The tack thing was broken on that one. But yeah, that it's just something that's always existed. Sometimes it's tacks. Sometimes they just paint it with hard like cellulose paint, so the hammers are hard. Just an old style kind of plinky plonky technique.
I didn't know that. That's really interesting. Last one then. This is probably a tough one because I don't think I could answer it. But what's your favourite Beatles song to play?
Oh, God. In any given week, it can be different. I really like playing... in a gig, I don't feel like I've started doing a gig yet until I play A Hard Day's Night. I don't feel like I'm standing right or like going for it until I play that song. And it's not because it's like my favourite song, or by any means. I love the song, like I love many of the songs, but there's something about playing it in a gig where I feel like you're really in the zone when you do that song. I think it's because it's got a good John bit and a good Paul bit, and it's just very exciting to play. It's a good kind of groove to go forward with, it's got something. And when you do it right, you're like, okay, we're here playing. I love playing that song live. Yeah.
I think that's one of my favourites. Ringo's beat just is belting all the way through. It's the same dynamic. It's just no let up from start to finish.
Very little fill action going on. He does like a little dum, dum, and I think that's like as close as it gets to a fill. Or there's like a little dun, 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 or something. But mostly he's just going boom, chim, boom, 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 chim, boom, boom, chim, boom, 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 chim, and it's just like, there you go.
That's it. It's amazing. What so most Beatles shows have a range. I would say there's probably about 60 tunes that get played regularly, maybe 70. Yeah. What of outside of those tunes, is there one or two that you wish that we did play?
Well, I'm very lucky that I was in a band with Clark, who we were talking about earlier, where we played tons and tons of Beatles songs out with the usual Beatle band remit, and that's what we were famous for, because we used to do like full albums and stuff, and we done every up to Rubber Soul, and we've done a hell of a lot of album tracks from the other albums as well. So there's a couple of songs that we never done that I would love to have done, and they would be, we never ever played Maxwell's Silver Hammer. Love to do that. And we never ever played Everybody's Got Something to Hide Except Me and My Monkey. I would love to have done that. And we never ever played, I think we played most of Revolver. We never ever played, I don't know, Your Mother Should Know. We never ever played that. I would have loved to have done that. So there you go.
Yeah, there's a few surprising ones in there. I'm surprised you didn't do Maxwell Silver Hammer, because I would have thought that would be reasonably straightforward to do.
Well, that little piano run in it is insanely hard. I don't think I could do that.
Oh yes.
I don't think the bootleg Beatles had that little piano run when they done Abbey Road last year.
Yeah.
Because it's like doodle doodle doodle, and I'm not sure if Paul played that. It's quite a hard bit. Or if it was maybe George Martin, but it probably was Paul. He was quite good.
I'd need to look it up. I don't know. Any thoughts on your favourite technique that you've used?
I mean, I wouldn't call them techniques or anything. Like, something that I done on my last album that I thought was quite cool was I actually put bass drum microphones on my toms, and they sounded big and fat. So I had like an AKG D12 on my rack tom.
Oh, nice.
And huge thing attached to the rim. And I had like I've got this little Super Lux bass drum microphone, and it was a cheap piece of shit, but it sounds amazing. I've actually got that on my bass amp at the moment.
Yeah.
I had that on the floor tom, so it seemed to make the toms just really nice and deep. And I would do that again, like if I was recording drums, which I'm not, and that's one of the great things. As you were saying earlier, you've been sending me like drum mixes and stuff. And I think that's what's actually helped me get into a better flow musically, that I'm not thinking about recording drums. It was just one of these things that was the bane of my existence. I loved it and I hated it in equal measure. And I was always, I would spend a whole day just trying to record drums and not even do a song, just to try and get the sound that I wanted. And I would torture myself recording drums. Absolutely torture myself. So my neighbour's done me a favour by fucking complaining about it. Anyway.
Well, I'm glad I could be of some assistance.
Yeah, you're all right. You're all right, you.
It's been really lovely chatting to you. Thank you for coming on.
No worries. It's been great, yeah.
And we should mention, thank you for, if you're listening to the podcast, in the very first welcome episode, I spouted on about how appreciative and talented you are. So we put together the intro music and outro music to this podcast, which was quite kind of a fun little thing to do. I sang you a voice memo of like an amalgamation.
The funny thing about that is when on the Sunday morning when I tried to do it and I'd been up drinking all night. And I said, right, no, I'm doing it. I'm going for it now. And I come in here and I still had like a glass of wine. And I don't know why I thought I was going to do this. But I set it up and I had my casino on. I was trying to do like the opening riff to Revolution. And I just fucking tried it about 100 times and then just fell asleep with my guitar on and slumped in the seat. So that was that. Yeah, then the next day I nailed it, of course. But so that's my funny story about that particular jingle recording session.
Well, thank you for putting the time in, because I've listened to it 1,000 times already, and I still love it. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, nice one. I think the bit that I like the best is the "Tell Me Why" bit. I think that sounds the best. But
that's
I've got my piano doing the dong dong, and I've worked out the kind of the right voicing that they're doing, I think, and it sounds dead pleased with that bit.
Yeah, you nailed it. Where can people find you online?
Well, obviously I've got a Bandcamp, and that's got a lot of the stuff that we've not mentioned. I should mention quickly, I've done a bunch of albums that I produced with my mate Stu called Dr. Cosmo's Tape Lab. And that stuff's really worth checking out, because after I'd done the Owsley Sunshine, I had a bit of a period where I didn't do much. I'd done a couple of solo albums, and then when I started doing Dr. Cosmo, I got back into recording again properly, and that's been, for the last 7 or 8 years. That stuff is worth checking out. A couple of great albums, really inventive albums. And since then, I've just been doing kind of solo stuff again with various people, and yeah, so you can check it out at my Bandcamp anyway. So I've got all the Owsley Sunshine stuff there, my solo albums, and the new Radiophonic Tuck Shop. There's been 2 albums of that, a Christmas album and a non-Christmas album, and there's a new one coming soon as well, which is quite beatly, but also a bit out there as well, so that'll be coming in the next few months, hopefully.
So if people search Joe Kane on Bandcamp, will they find it?
Yeah. I'd like to be more specific. I can't remember what it's called.
I'll find it, and I'll put links to it all in the show notes on Podbean for this.
Yeah, check it out, people. Buy it, etc.
I mean, I'd definitely recommend it. I love listening to it. I've got a 3-year-old daughter, and I sent you that video of her dancing along to Love Hearts, and she sings Stay at Home, just by herself around the house. She loves it.
That's cool. Kids always seem to like the music that I make, and I always think kids are a good barometer for music. Like, if something's catchy, kids like it, and I think that's good. Kids always seem to like my daft music.
I think that's really fair. I think that's a really good shout. Cool. Well, thanks again, and yeah, there we are. So I'll just put music to fade that out.
All right, cool. Thanks for having me, man. I enjoyed that. It was good.
That's cool, man. Thank you for coming on and chatting. So there we go, Joe Kane. And as usual, I hope you enjoyed listening to that conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. I think, obviously, because I know Joe reasonably well, that was a much more casual conversation than past episodes. So I tried to leave it fairly, fairly jovial. And I hope you enjoyed it anyway. And I'm going to rush out and buy £30 worth of microphones off Amazon. Okay, I'm going to put links in the show notes to all of Joe's Bandcamp pages. I recommend checking it out. The Radiophonic Tuck Shop has an album coming out, I think I'm allowed to say, in the autumn, so September, October time. And go and check out the Chino Feldy stuff, which is absolutely fantastic. Next week, we are chatting to Alan White. I did warn you, there is a bit of a drumtastic period coming along over the next few episodes. So Alan White's next, who of course played drums with John Lennon, George Harrison, and he was extremely generous with his time and was an absolutely lovely chap. Everybody I speak to is a lovely person, an absolutely lovely person. Yeah, everybody's just really nice. Okay, as usual, if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can visit my website, allyouneedisdrums.com. I'm on Instagram, allyouneedisdrums, or the email address is joe@allyouneedisdrums.com. And I hope you have a fantastic couple of weeks. I know I've said thank you to Joe enough times during this podcast, but I want to thank Joe for the amazing work he did with the intro and outro of this, and my good friend David Henshaw for the artwork that he supplies for this and my isolated drums that I send out every fortnight. He does both of those, and I'm very grateful. So yeah, have a fantastic couple of weeks, and I'll see you on the next episode with Alan White. Goodbye.